The shadows of All Hallows Eve. The autumn wind whispered through the skeletal trees, carrying with it a chilling promise of Halloween night. In the forgotten town of Ravenswood, nestled deep within a sprawling, ancient forest, the locals spoke in hushed tones about the legend of Willow's End Cemetery. It was said that on this one night, the boundary between the living and the dead grew thin, and the spirits of the departed were granted a brief return to the world of the living. Amelia, an inquisitive teenager with a penchant for the macabre, had always been drawn to Willow's End Cemetery. The tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie happenings intrigued her, and this Halloween night, she and her friends, Mark and Sarah, decided to embark on a midnight adventure. The town itself was shrouded in darkness as the trio made their way to the cemetery. The fog rolled in thick and heavy, enveloping the landscape in an eerie mist. The distant howl of a lone wolf echoed through the night, sending shivers down their spines. As the clock struck 12, the moon cast an ethereal, blood-red glow over the graveyards and gnarled tombstones and crumbling mausoleums. The air grew still, and a sense of unease settled upon them like a heavy cloak. Amelia, armed with a flickering lantern, led the way into the heart of the cemetery. Shadows danced eerily among the graves as they ventured deeper into the cemetery's labyrinthine paths. The chill in the air seemed to intensify, and the moonlight played tricks on their senses. Suddenly, Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream, her trembling finger pointing at a figure in the distance. A translucent woman, dressed in a tattered white gown, stood by a grave, her mournful eyes fixed on a fading photograph. It was as if she existed in a world between the living and the dead. They approached cautiously, their hearts pounding with fear and curiosity. The spirit turned toward them, her face etched with a deep sadness. Without a word, she pointed to the grave and then to the photograph in her hand. It was a faded image of a young girl who bore a striking resemblance to Amelia. As they tried to make sense of this spectral encounter, the apparition beckoned for them to follow, her footsteps leaving no trace in the damp earth. The trio hesitated but ultimately chose to obey, their lantern casting long, ominous shadows on the tombstones. The ghostly figure led them through the cemetery, passing gravestones of long-forgotten names and echoing whispers of the past. They arrived at a grave, its tombstone worn with age, but the inscription still readable. It bore the name Evelyn Hartwell and the years 1895 to 1904. The apparition pointed at the photograph and then herself, as if to convey a message. It became clear that she was the ghost of Evelyn, a young girl who had died at the tender age of 9. Amelia, her eyes welling with tears, realized the truth. Evelyn had lost her life over a century ago, but her spirit was trapped, unable to find peace. She had wandered the cemetery, searching for her lost family and a sense of closure. The clock in the nearby church tower chimed 1, and the cemetery seemed to come alive with malevolent energy. The shadows deepened, and ghostly whispers filled the air. Amelia, Mark, and Sarah shuddered as they realized the sinister nature of this place on Halloween night. Emerging from the fog came a group of eerie figures, dressed in tattered rags and bearing the mark of the undead. They were the restless spirits of those who had been buried in Willow's End Cemetery, drawn to the living like moths to a flame. Their hollow eyes fixed on the intruders, and they began to encircle Amelia, Mark, and Sarah. One spirit, a gaunt man with sunken eyes, reached out his skeletal hand, his fingers inches from Amelia's throat. Another, a spectral child, whispered malevolent incantations that sent shivers through the air. It was clear that these were not benevolent souls but tormented entities seeking to drag the living into the realm of the dead. With trembling hands, Amelia, Mark, and Sarah joined hands and offered a heartfelt apology to Evelyn for her tragic fate, feeling the oppressive weight of the malevolent forces that surrounded them. They promised to ensure her story was remembered, and that her family knew of her enduring love. The apparition's eyes filled with gratitude as she faded into the night, finally at peace. As the spirits of Willow's End Cemetery retreated into the shadows, the trio made their escape, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the past and the lingering presence of the sinister forces that had momentarily released their grip. Halloween night had brought them face to face with the darkest depths of the supernatural, and they would forever remember the night they encountered the ghostly shadows of All Hallows Eve. As the trio retreated from the malevolent spirits of Willow's End Cemetery, they found themselves lost in the labyrinthine paths of the graveyard. The fog had thickened, obscuring their view, and the distant sounds of eerie, mournful wails filled the air. Panic threatened to overtake them, but Amelia's determination pushed them forward. She recalled a local legend passed down through generations, a forgotten tunnel that led out of the cemetery. It was said that this tunnel had been sealed off to prevent the escape of restless spirits. Guided by their flickering lantern and an unsettling sense of dread, they stumbled upon an old, ivy-covered mausoleum. Mark and Sarah were hesitant, but Amelia's determination won out, and they pushed open the heavy stone doors. Inside, they discovered a narrow passageway concealed beneath a cobweb-covered rug. With trembling hands, they lifted the rug, revealing an ancient stone staircase that descended into darkness. Amelia led the way, their lantern casting eerie shadows on the walls as they descended deeper into the earth. The tunnel twisted and turned, its walls adorned with centuries-old symbols and cryptic writings. The air grew colder, and the oppressive weight of the earth above them bore down. The trio could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent lurking in the darkness. Just as they thought they might never find an escape, a faint, ghostly whisper echoed through the tunnel, sending shivers down their spines. It was a voice from the past, a mournful plea for help that seemed to resonate from the very walls themselves. The tunnel seemed to narrow, and they found themselves in a chamber unlike any they had ever seen. Ancient candles flickered along the walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to have a life of their own. Macabre statues of forgotten gods stood in eerie silence, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. At the chamber's center lay a grim altar, upon which lay an ancient, leather-bound tome, the Book of Shadows. The air grew colder, and the oppressive weight of the earth above them bore down. The trio could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent lurking in the darkness. Before they could react, a sinister figure emerged from the shadows. It was the keeper of the book, a wretched creature with long, gnarled fingers and hollow, empty eyes. With a voice that seemed to resonate from the depths of the underworld, the keeper spoke of dark rituals and forgotten incantations. Amelia, Mark, and Sarah knew they had stumbled upon something beyond their comprehension. Desperation forced them to confront the keeper, demanding answers about the tunnel and the malevolent spirits that plagued the cemetery. The keeper's laughter echoed through the chamber as he revealed the truth. The tunnel was a trap, a gateway to an ancient curse that bound the spirits to Willow's End Cemetery. The spirits, driven by an insatiable hunger for the living, would stop at nothing to claim their souls. With horror in their eyes, the trio realized that their only hope lay in the Book of Shadows. The keeper, with a sinister grin, offered them a deal. If they could decipher the ancient incantations within the book and break the curse, their lives would be spared. If not, they would join the restless spirits in eternal torment. With trembling hands, they began to read the forbidden text, their voices trembling as they uttered the incantations. As the words left their lips, the chamber quaked, and the malevolent spirits' cries grew louder. Time seemed to stand still as they battled to break the curse that had plagued Willow's End Cemetery for centuries. The air grew thick with tension as the incantations reached their climax. The ground beneath them shook violently, threatening to consume them. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the curse shattered, and the malevolent spirits were banished. The keeper, defeated and powerless, faded into the shadows, and the tunnel leading back to the cemetery sealed itself shut once more. Exhausted and shaken, Amelia, Mark, and Sarah emerged from the underground chamber, free from the malevolent forces that had threatened to claim their souls. They returned to Ravenswood, forever changed by their encounter with the darkness of Willow's End Cemetery. Halloween night had revealed to them the true depths of the supernatural, and they would forever bear the weight of that knowledge.